All right, a systematic way to do bottleneck analysis on your funnel, whether you have your own offer or whether you are doing somebody else's offer, like you're managing their offer, through growth operating or whatever it may be. This is also useful if you run Facebook ads. This is useful if you are, like I said, a growth operator and you're working with another company and you're coming in and you're kind of taking over an info product or some kind of maybe digital product, whatever it may be. Understanding how your funnel is performing is, by far one of the most important metrics that you could possibly understand. And so through bottle funnel or top-down analysis of your funnel, you can kind of understand all of the immediate bottlenecks that need to be solved in order to increase your output. And so one thing I think is important to mention is there's a lot of baseline metrics that an offer or a funnel need to hit in order for it to be considered a successful funnel. But there are certain things that you can do immediately in a funnel that will automatically double or triple the output or the back end of the funnel by just modifying the front end of the funnel. If you come into an offer, for an example, and you have an offer and a lot of your metrics aren't hitting baseline. The goal is not to get every single metric up to baseline, through segmentation. The goal is to fix the easiest ones first, but not just the easiest, the ones that will increase the back end the quickest. So example, we were talking to these guys that were running a pretty much like a make money online through booking people's flights or something like that. And the dude was doing about $70,000 a month. On this guy's funnel, on his front end, he was only converting at 5% on the front end or 10% on the front end. And then he was still doing about $80,000 a month. Now, the reason why I even mentioned that is because had his metric, his baseline at 10% be at baseline, converting at 20%, he would be doubling his income because whatever you can double on the front end doubles anything on the back end. So let's say you're converting at 5% on the front end. If you go and you're making $10,000 a month, if you can increase the 5% on the front end to 10%, then you double the back end, which means you're at 10K a month now. Theoretically, yes, there are other systems that fall into place. More closers, more setters, maybe product fulfillment. There's other bottlenecks. But the point is, if you can double the front end, then you double the back end. And so when we look at this My Report I prepared here, we're going to be covering in today's video the top-down analysis. And top-down analysis is essentially just looking at the front of the funnel. So a funnel is something like this, as you guys know. Okay, where you have a lot of stuff that comes into the top, and as it starts going down the funnel, it starts to get tighter and tighter until you get to the bottom. So this right here is considered the top end, while this down here is considered the bottom. So top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. So when you look at something like this, let's say this is a funnel that we have here, this whole thing, right? This is going to be top of the funnel, right? Where we're allowing a ton of people to come in, right? We're allowing as many people as we can to come in to the top of the funnel. But the ones who make it out on the outer is going to be there's going to be a lot less people. So let's say, for an example, 1,000 leads come in right here. On the back end, when by the end of the funnel, say only 2 leads make it. Okay, so top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. So this is top-down funnel analysis. What we're going to do is we're going to look for the easiest conversion rate increase, okay? Because if we can double the front end of the funnel, it doubles the back end. So let's take a look at an example call funnel right here. So we look at the front end of the funnel. We have our Facebook ads, our YouTube traffic, and our Instagram ads, let's say running into a landing page. Now, obviously, this thing right here is going to have some kind of VSL, headline copy, apply now button, some testimonials, and then the apply now button again. Something very simple and basic. Now, as you can see on this offer right here, as this is in this example, we have 2 metrics right here. We have what we're converting at and then what our baseline metrics should be. So in this instance, we're converting at 20% and we need to get this to 30%. So what that means is 1,000 leads click, but only 200 of the leads actually hit this survey page. This survey page is actually going to be serving as some kind of qualification, disqualification form where we do not want anybody to show up to a closer call. Okay, right? We only want to talk to people who are qualified. And so that's what this survey is. It's essentially a hidden application form. Now, once they do this survey, let's say we have 20% of your leads qualify and then 80% of your leads disqualify. Awesome. Now, the ones that disqualify, they'll go to a thank you for your submission. Our team will be in contact with you shortly. Now, of the leads who qualify, we're going to have certain metrics, right? We're going to have people who book a call and people who don't book a call. And so this is going to give us new metrics. So we're pretty much just stemming out segmentation of every possible instance that can happen. So you have people that hit the landing page, some people who don't hit the secondary survey page. We have some people who hit the book a call page, some people who book, who don't book. Okay, so this is going to continue down. So now of the people who book, there's going to be some new segmentation. There's going to be people who don't show, and there's going to be people who show. Of the people who show, some of them are going to buy, some of them are not going to buy. So looking at this, we have 40 leads that qualify, 20% make it. And then let's say we have 15 leads book, 25 leads don't book. Okay, that means only 37.5% of our leads book. Now over here, we have 46% show rate, which means only 7 leads show, but we should have about a 70% show rate. As we come down this funnel, we now have 2 leads cash collect, 28% buy rate, and then we have 5 leads who don't, 71% don't buy. So looking at this funnel, what is the first metric that we need to modify to get to baseline? Okay, well, one right here, we're honestly it's not too bad. Converting at 20% is not that bad. So we're going to ignore that for now. We're going to look for the next best thing. Right here, we have 200 leads land, and then we have 40 of them will qualify in 161. Now, this can just be like a super rigorous application form. And in this instance, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because what that means is the people who actually end up showing up to the call are more than likely going to buy, right? Because not only did they pass this very rigorous, application survey page, but they also showed up to their call. So the chances are the people who end up showing to the call are actually going to be people who buy. So there's no really point in modifying this. This is going to be like a per instant basis where do we feel like we're allowing too many leads to come in? Okay, and you can get that metric based on your show rate or based on your close rate. If you're closing 70% of the leads that you're bringing in, at that point you're going to want to increase. Like if your close rate is 70%, for an example, you're not going to want to leave that metric. You want to bring your close rate down to 30%. But the reason why it decreased to 30% is because you increased your prices significantly. Okay, so you're still making a lot more money with less fulfillment involved. So then looking at the next metric here, we have a 50% show rate. Now, honestly, this is not that bad. And I know I'm going to get a little bit I know that the baseline metric we want to see is 70%. One of the things that we've done to help increase our show rate is by, as soon as they book a call, takes them to a next page, it's like a confirmation page. This page essentially says your call is not booked, your call is not confirmed until you speak to one of our staff or a representative who's going to reach out to you. And if they can't get a hold of you, then we're going to cancel the booking. This is not going to necessarily increase the show rate from these leads, but it is going to increase the show rate of the leads who do contact. Does that make sense? Now, the reason why this is effective and the reason why this is powerful is because of your salespeople, of your closers, they're not going to just sit on the call waiting for somebody to show that they don't know who's going to show. They're not going to be wasting their time, which means you can cancel that booking and then allow that time slot to be rebooked, which then gives them one more person to actually talk to. Now, there's another strategy that you can do to kind of mitigate the risk in this. 37% book. You want to take them to a next page that kind of essentially pre-frames / intrigues, a little bit of curiosity, maybe a little bit of a pattern interruption to get them to show up to this call, and it's going to pre-frame them. Obviously, there needs to be a lot of nurturing from book to call to actually showing up. And the more nurturing you're going to have a higher show rate. And that's going to help get this percentage up to 50%. Okay, in another video, I'm going to talk about why a 50% show rate really is not that bad, because you can double book calendars. But in that meantime, one of the main things that you can do to increase this show rate is confirmation page with a lot of value dense information about your company, etc. You pretty much helping them do the research for them. Frequently asked questions is kind of how you can think of it, but video-based frequently asked questions. If you're watching this video, I'm sure you know what breakout pages are, or confirmation pages are. And that's going to help you increase your show rate. Now we have a metric right here that's 28% and 30% buy. Okay, now when we look at this funnel right here, honestly, there's not any massive area for crazy improvement. And so top-down analysis on this funnel isn't going to give us a very specific metric that we need to fix in order to double the output, because a lot of it has to do with possibly not making the application so rigorous. In this instance, if 80% of your leads are disqualified, then it's not necessarily an application question, unless, there's the obvious, if you have a super invasive financial qualification, which that in and of itself is going to immediately drop down your qualification rate, or at least your completion rate as a whole. But it just means that there is something not in a line from here to here, or from here to here, from here to here. So there's a disconnect. There's it's not congruent. So your ads are not aligned with your copy, or your ads aren't aligned with something that is causing them to disqualify, essentially, because they should not even be opting in if that makes sense. They shouldn't even be opting in if this doesn't make sense for them. And so if they get to this page and they're just like, nobody is qualifying, then chances are you're pushing the wrong people into the funnel, which is like predominantly like an ads problem. But when we go and we look at an offer like this, for an example, where we have 1,000 leads that click and only 5% of them actually opt in. What that means is, let's say this offer is doing, so we have 4 leads that cash collected. Let's say this offer is doing $10,000 per times 4 equals $40,000. Okay, so this right here is $40,000 that this offer is making, and it's only converting at a 5%. Now, let's say we increase this closer to the baseline, right? And we increase this to 10%. Then what that's going to do is it's now going to double the amount of leads that qualify, double the amount of leads that show, and double the amount of leads that cash collect, and it's going to easily take this offer into over $80,000, okay? So if we can just double this metric from 5 to 10%, we're going to double the back end. Now, how can we double this? How can we increase this from 5 to 10%? Well, one, there's obviously a major disconnect between the ads and then the landing page copy. What they're seeing on the ads, they're not seeing on the headline. Okay, they're not seeing on the landing page. Whether that's a VSL issue or that's a headline copy issue, that's something that's major, okay? Or maybe your apply now is like broken half the time, or maybe when they do click apply now and you do a lead capture and you have name, email, phone number, there's something glitching out on it. Like there's something wrong with this front end, okay? The first things I would just check is your copy, your VSL, and then your Facebook ads, making sure everything is congruent with each other, and then this should easily increase, okay? Now, let's say we look at this area right here where we have 50% of leads qualify and 50% of leads disqualify. This is perfectly healthy and a pretty much a perfect metric, okay? Now, let's say that gives us 80% of leads who actually qualify do in fact end up booking, okay? Which means 20% of those leads book. Now, over here, we have a 50% show rate. Now, this is not bad, but this would be the second thing that we fix, okay? The second thing that we fix, because it's stemming from the front end. We want to fix top-down analysis. First and easiest thing to fix, and then the second easiest thing to fix, which would be this 10, which would be the show rate, and you'd want to try and increase this to 70%. Now, once again, you're going to increase this by having a confirmation page that has a VSL that pre-frames the call for them, good copy up here, and then breakout frequently asked question videos, which we'll talk about in another video. And that's going to help increase that show rate. Alongside that, the actual nurturing to the show rate. And then other leads that don't show, it doesn't really matter. Now, cash collected, we have a 40% buy rate here, which is phenomenal. And then baseline for that, about 30% close rate. So nothing we would change here, but this would be something that we'd want to possibly increase our prices by 5, 10, 15%. That's going to bring this number back down, but actually put more money in your pocket, okay? And the point that I'm trying to make here is, one, you're going to make more money, but then two, you're going to need less staff. Let's say you're doing some kind of like product fulfillment. Let's say it's fitness or something. The least amount of people that the goal is to increase the profit, but decrease the amount of workload, right? And so if we increase prices and it drops that close rate down 10%, but we make up for that premium that's lost, is a good thing. So anyway, this is a really systematic way to do bottleneck analysis, doing top of the funnel to bottom of the funnel. Simply looking for the easiest thing that you can fix to get to baseline, which is going to help double the output on the back end. So you don't just go and fix random pieces in your funnel. You fix the thing that's the easiest to fix. Once that's fixed, then you can go and you start working on the other pieces, and you always want to start with the front end. But anyway, I hope this video kind of helped, showcase like exactly how you should look at your funnel, look at your offer, breaking it down into segmentation pieces, right? Each individual phase, each individual page, and then all of the outcomes that can possibly happen, right? So they hit the landing page. What's the only possible outcome? They either go to the next page or they don't. They drop off. Then from this page, what can happen? Okay, they can either DQL or they can QL. Right? From this point forward, they can either show up or they can don't show. So it's just essentially segmenting the entire funnel, getting those metrics on the pass-through rate, and then finding the easiest one to fix that is going to double the back end. Point is, like if we were to try and just fix just this first and foremost, and we increase this from 50 to 70, all we're going to do is put an extra like 1 or 2 leads on this back end, right? But then only 40% of those leads are going to buy, opposed to doubling this front end and then putting an extra 10, 20, 30 leads on the back end. And this is an easy way to pretty much just, double the amount of cash collected. So other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.